Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, your home for inspiring conversations with outdoor insiders. Each week, author, speaker, adventurer, and outdoor industry veteran Rick Saez talks in depth with iconic brand founders, sales and marketing pros, product designers, and industry rising stars. Listen in when Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig and grow your outdoor career. Catch us again when the conversation shifts to the hottest outdoor products, destinations, and the latest industry insights. And now, here's Rick.
Welcome to episode 324 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. 30-year glove manufacturing veteran Gary Schloss felt obliged and inspired to bring a protective glove to market and help offer a solution to contain the spread of COVID-19. Gary and his team delivered that solution in the spring of 2020, and he's here to tell us all about it. Hey, Gary, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, great to be talking with you today. I'll always love to start off with how folks got into the outdoors and the outdoor business. How'd that come about for you?
Oh, I think like many of us, my introduction to the outdoor activity lifestyle was instilled in me with my father and my brother. We grew up skiing, would go up on weekends we started in the Poconos and in the Catskills and ended up migrating up to the bigger mountains of the Adirondacks and then Vermont, the Greens, the Whites of New Hampshire. Got to get on planes and started skiing in the Rockies, the Sierras, and eventually over time made my way to the Alps. So I just grew up skiing and really enjoying a mountain lifestyle.
Very cool. And the Sierras, you came to Mammoth probably? Did you do any backcountry skiing out here?
Not backcountry at the time, and it was long before snowboarding, which I started in my 30s when it became a thing.
Oh, wow.
But also was in my first foray into into the outdoor business world was the second job I had in my high school career. First being working in a pool table factory in my local town, but the second one was being an employee at Bob's Sports in Stamford, and I worked in the ski shop there. And you did everything from sharpening wax to help on the floor. And it was great to get to do something do something that earned a paycheck that you love to do.
And it's good to start at the bottom like that too at retail, I think. You really learn a lot about the customer and the product and the business. Good for you. Yeah, cool. And how did you get into the glove business? How did that come about?
Gloves were a family business. My family was involved in the Aris ski glove line. At the time, Aris was owned by Consolidated Foods, and they were migrating from leather gloves. The market was migrating from leather gloves to non-leather gloves with Gore-Tex inserts. It got a bit different. They decided that it wasn't a business they wanted to be in for ski gloves any longer. So they offered my stepfather, Bob Tarrant, the license to the Aris brand, which is what when we co-founded Tabar in 1982, we were the licensee for the Aris ski glove brand. Shortly thereafter, and in the last couple of years, the first couple of years, we migrated to a private label model. My Bob used to joke and say that we carried our retailers longer than their mothers did. And that was his famous line. And people pay for skis and bindings and boots. Gloves were usually the last on the list. So we migrated the model from a retail direct wholesale model to working with brands to leverage the backspace of gloves as billboard advertising while someone was waiting on a lift line. And it was great. At the time, we were making gloves for Rossignol and for Lang and for Tyrolia and Technica, and basically just developing gloves to complement their whatever hard goods they were selling.
I remember the Tabar. Did you guys ever do a brand of Tabar gloves? I just remember as a retailer.
We didn't do a brand of Tabar gloves, and we did that specifically because we didn't want to compete with our private label partners for open to buy dollars. We started selling retail gloves to Walmarts and Kmarts of the day, but quickly learned that was a tough proposition based on the commodization of that kind of product. So we went to the higher end route, basically better technical gloves, and focused primarily on brands. We've worked with almost all. We work with some of the major retailers like REI and Eastern Mountain Sports and Mountain Equipment Co-op in Canada. We also worked with companies like Patagonia and Burton, Black Diamond, many companies over the years through that whole thing. And then it transitioned to inline skate gloves when that market started to emerge and people needed specific wrist protections and things. When the windsurfing surge hit, we started making gloves for windsurfers. So Tabar became a go-to resource for emerging markets and creating product that really wasn't a Me Too product. It was more purposefully built. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Yeah. And you guys did a really good job of keeping all the brand's products unique. And because I remember Tabar as not a brand, but everybody talked about Tabar makes the glove guys when I was working at retail at A16. So you guys had a great reputation. And
that was a great period of time. And we grew that company from we started in 82, Bob passed away in 94. And then we just continued to expand and grow. We went from working in a basement of a home to working over a warehouse to migrating into office space in Connecticut, then opening a West Coast office in Bellingham. We had a Hong Kong office. We had staff in Korea, staff in Sri Lanka. So it scaled quite nicely. And we were blessed in the fact that we had a great group of young designers, all of who were end users. And we actually were the recipients of the coveted honor of 10 best places to work in the outdoor industry from 2010 to 2015.
Wow. Congratulations. That's very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great run.
Yeah, that was good. That was the heyday of the outdoor business too. It was a great time to be in it. We had a lot of fun. And you stayed on after the merger with Foss Brothers, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We created a strategic merge in 2014. I was approached by Foss Brothers, and they were looking because Foss Brothers has been a dress glove leader in the marketplace since 1777, actually, quite a long time, based in New York. And they were looking to expand their offering. And on our end, we were really looking to take advantage of a larger back office, which allowed us to scale for many reasons, as well as the ability to be factory direct because they owned 2 factories. And that was always one of the things with Tabar, that we never really owned our own factory. And we did that strategically as well. We didn't want to be tied to a location because locations tend to migrate and move. It started in the U.S., it went to Taiwan and Korea, it went to China, and now it's Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, it's all over. So we didn't want to be tied to a location. We wanted the flexibility to use the best factory for the best particular end use. But I ended up working managing that division for Foss. My people, most of which maintained their positions and were able to make that transition somewhat seamlessly.
Cool.
And then I resigned in May of 2020, just right at the start of the pandemic, and not interesting time, but I was sometimes bigger isn't better. I'm more entrepreneurial by nature, and chasing large volume and chasing big business loses some of its luster over time. You're a cog in the wheel. Let's just say that. I really prefer working with smaller, more entrepreneurial companies and brands where the owner operator still is involved and there's still a lot of passion within the company for the end use that we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah. It's much more fun to be involved in all of the decisions if you can be, but if you just someone hands down a decision, you have to go execute. It's like, okay, here we go. Yeah. So did you leave specifically to start BlocAid? Tell our listeners about BlocAid.
So BlocAid, no, I didn't leave specifically to start BlocAid. It's a bit of a trifecta for what I'm doing now. But BlocAid came about as we were entering into the pandemic. We were going through a shortage of PPE, specifically PPE that wasn't coming from China and Taiwan, because there were a lot of disturbances to the supply chain. You couldn't get a lot of these products. And we were looking for I was looking for a domestic solution to that problem. So BlocAid came about by creating a partnership with a company called EchoZinc, where our gloves, if worn and used properly, will help to reduce and protect the wearer from surface contaminants, germs, viruses, things of that nature.
Wow.
And it was an offset to latex gloves, which were disposable. And as everyone can remember, were found in the corners of parking lots of grocery stores and on the streets everywhere. After a time, people weren't using them properly. They weren't putting them on and taking them off properly. There were a lot of issues with cross-contamination. There were a lot of issues of continued shortages, first responders who desperately needed that product. Mm-hmm. So BlocAid came about to answer that call. However, that wasn't the only tool in the toolbox, so to speak. I continued my glove consultancy. It's something that I've been doing most of my professional life, again, going into working with more entrepreneurial brands, as well as becoming the North American business liaison for an Italian company called Altexa, which is the owner and operator of the H-Dry waterproof breathable technology system. It's a 3D direct lamination system that competes with the likes of Event, Gore-Tex, and Sympatex and other technologies like that.
Gotcha. So BlocAid timing is everything, I guess, and your timing was perfect, and you solved a couple of problems. It sounds like one was the protection problem, but then also the trash problem, right? Because BlocAid you can use over and over, and not have to.
It was a multi-use product. It's a product that can be used with your cell. It was cell phone compatible. It had touchscreen activations. It can be washed hundreds of times without the loss of the functionality of the Echo Zinc, blocking the germs. It answered a ton of problems. The biggest challenge I think I faced, well, besides setting up the supply chain and getting all of the claims verified, make sure that all the legalese was there with regards to what you can and can't say about products was valid and in place. But it was quite interesting for me, having been someone who worked for brands. Becoming a brand itself was quite a daunting challenge, and creating the marketing, creating the community, creating the websites and the direct to consumer shopping portals. That was all quite the learning curve, and it wasn't as easy, quite frankly, as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, I'll bet you had to overcome a lot of challenge. Was there some challenge in resistance to a fabric type glove protecting me from all the things going on with the pandemic? That the latex glove, it's a barrier. Everybody's used to that. There must have been challenges overcoming that.
There were some challenges. People want the glove to be everything to everybody. It can't do what latex gloves can do. So anyone dealing with wet care or blood pathogen work needs latex. Yep. It's not quite an insulative glove. In fact, most of the direct-to-consumer sales we've had the demographic is quite funny. It's a woman over 55 living in Florida. So they're not buying these. They're not buying these gloves to insulate themselves while outside. They're wearing these gloves indoors in July because people have circulation issues. They could have Raynaud's, or they could have diabetic nerve issues, and they want it to be protected, especially in essence in assisted living facilities and other areas where people might be prone to surface contaminants. And it's quite funny. That seems to be, if we had to throw a dart on a dartboard, that we're selling a lot of these gloves to older people living in southern states.
Didn't see that coming, I'm sure.
Nope. It's been a learning experience all the way through.
We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor, Audible. Hey, do you love to read but don't always have the time to sit down with a good book? I'm the same, and sometimes I just feel like having someone else tell the story. Audible is like having a library in your phone. Whether I'm passing highway mile markers on the way to some adventure or racking up miles in the air, Audible helps the time fly as I'm enjoying a great book I discover or recommended by friends. Sign up for a free trial today at ricksays.com/audible. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from. Go to ricksays.com/audible and start your free trial today. Now, back to the show. And how about some of the biggest wins? I bet the sales channel was challenging as well, but you could sell to anybody, really.
Yeah, it's a very wide open market. It's just the challenge for me has just been reaching the proper target audience effectively. We've done a number of things. We created product videos. We've created social media content. We placed ads on Facebook and all different, through ads up in YouTube. We've tried to utilize all of these new tools to reach consumers directly. The medical institutional channel probably is the most viable. It's just been difficult to break in, mainly because no one has been in offices to meet as groups and decide on how to impact change within their organizations to onboard new products. So some of the larger medical firms that we had been talking to were only meeting maybe once a month because everyone was working remotely. It's been quite an interesting. This pandemic has shown us a new side to almost all aspects of our lives.
Boy, no kidding. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute there. Any future projects you guys are working on you can talk about?
I got my hands full, to be quite honest. We have about 12 entrepreneurial brands we're working with regards to glove design and development. The H-Dry relaunch for North America has gone very well, and that takes up a good part of my day. And then keeping BlocAid shipping gloves it takes up the rest of it. I'm at a point in my career where maybe less is more, and I'm readjusting to a more lax pace. No more having to make trips into New York City or commute to work on a grand scale. And the Asia trips have subsided and all that. Being as busy as I want to be.
That's a good place to be. Good for you.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about COVID a little bit. Give us your perspective on COVID. Are we in the 9th inning or the 2nd inning?
Let's switch to football. I think we're at halftime. And the reason I think we're at halftime because we've seen over the last 20 plus months, we've seen a lot. We've learned a lot. I think we've figured out some of the best defenses and offenses. So now it's about how do we navigate this new normal, which it might be continued vaccines. It might be kids today. Just as of yesterday, my grandchildren didn't have to wear a mask to school, which has been, think about that. For almost the better part of 2 years, these kids have been wearing masks everywhere they go. In the state of Connecticut, Feb 28, you no longer needed to wear a mask. So it's a liberating day. All these parents are taking pictures with their kids at the school bus with no masks on and celebrating like it's Independence Day. I honestly think that this pandemic has changed not only how we deal with the viral impact, but the cultural impact. It's changed how we go to work, where we go to work, where we have to go to work. It's changed. Not only has it changed that, but it's changed a multitude of how we shop, where we go to malls. Do we shop online? It's changed so many facets of our lives, our daily lives, that this has been one of those tipping point moments, a paradigm shift, so to speak, for so many different levers that we push and pull on every day.
Zoom meetings. We're all in Zoom meetings now, which travel's impacted. No, you're right. It's a good perspective. Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit. Do you get outdoors much? You still ski and do all that?
Yeah, I still ski and snowboard. I'm almost 60, so snowboarding is actually my preferred method of sliding on snow. A little easier on the knees over the years, but when I'm with the little ones, I'm usually skiing to help guide them and teach them. It's easier to pick a kid up and get them on a chairlift when you're on two boards instead of one, but also very active, outdoors a lot, hiking, boating, motorcycle. I'm a huge motorcycle enthusiast, so we do a lot of motorcycle touring. I try to get out into the outdoors as often as I can.
Good for you. Well, you live in a beautiful spot. I'm sure it's relatively easy to get outside.
Some great roads and we're not as close to big mountains as I'd like to be, but we do have a few local hills which allow us easy access. And I live on one of the prettiest lakes in the Northeast, so I really can't complain.
Perfect. Good for you. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into the outdoor biz?
I would recommend to anyone looking to get into the outdoor business to stay local or stay small. Start at one of these entrepreneurial brands. And that isn't one of the big, huge monsters, because typically you'll wear many hats. You'll go into your role, and small companies that are potentially stretched for resources tend to teach a lot, with a much broader brush than, say, a large scale corporation in a major city, where you usually get siloed into doing one thing and handling that one thing time and again until perhaps you get a promotion and then you do another thing. What I like about staying local is that brands typically tend to be owned and operated by people who are still very passionate. They're very product focused versus price and profit focused. And you'll get a better sense of work. You'll get a better work-life balance. And I think people working hard is working hard, but I think working hard with less stress is probably a good ticket to enjoying your life versus it's a way of life in itself, not a means to an end.
I agree 100%. The closer you are to the product, the more the passion remains. That's well said. Good for you. How about your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Under $100. That's tough. Okay. I think two come to mind. The initial one being a Leatherman Skeletal. Found one of these. I think it was one of my swag runs at an outdoor retailer show, perhaps.
I think I had the same one.
I picked up a Leatherman Skeletal and find that thing invaluable. It like sits in my pickup truck, and I've used it in numerous amounts of times and for the most outrageous and weird things. And the second, there's another one though. It's called a Molly Zinger. A Molly Zinger is this little push. It's like a string pull attachment that's specifically made to go on Yeti coolers. So you can attach a bottle opener to it, and you could use that same instrument on a backpack, and you could use it for fly fishing tools. You could use it for just about anything. It's just a great little lanyard that pulls out when you need it and retracts when you don't. So I would say those would be my two gadgets under 100.
Those are good. I have obviously fly fishing. I use the Zingers, but I think I probably got the same skeletal you got or one of those years. They're great.
Yeah.
Those in the glove box of my car. How about favorite books? Are you a big reader? What are a couple of your favorite books?
A couple of books, both of which are outdoor oriented and based on business leadership, because having run a company for so many years, a lot of times I would focus my reading and kill two birds, a business / personal want and desire on information. There's two. One is called The Shackleton Way. It's basically business leadership lessons that stemmed from the endurance and that great Arctic exploration that failed spectacularly in many ways. Greatest failure of all time, and
greatest success on the back end too, though. Getting all those guys back.
That's the key. The reason why it's the greatest is because Shackleton, as a leader, proved to be quite the man. He got 27 people who were stranded on the ice in Antarctica in the Weddell Sea safely back to civilization, to their loved ones, and it's an interesting read because it talks about the actual expedition and what went down and some of the heroic and almost human aspects of their trials and tribulations, but then breaking them back down into useful lessons for running a company. The second book is by Yvon Chouinard, Let My People Go Surfing. Always respected Patagonia, worked with them as a brand for many years. In Ventura, even 20 years ago, they were starting out with childcare on site, and they developed 1% for the planet, and they've always been a great product integrity company and doing what's right for product, not just profit. And then also taking some of those profits as they grew to the huge company they became and plowing them back into environmental awareness. And quite an interesting book. A little bit of a biography on Yvon himself, a little bit of biography on the company, but also some great lessons on how to create a culture where everyone feels empowered to keep up the good work.
Yeah, those are great ones. So I've read the Let My People Go Surfing, and I'm a big Shackleton fan. I was fortunate enough to get on a Sobek adventure and go down there and see his grave at South Georgia Island. And we got the ship we were on cruised by Elephant Island, where those guys all holed up for, God, I don't remember how long that was, but you look at that little space and it's just phenomenal when you physically see where they did what they did. Just amazing. Yeah. Those are great books. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. As we wrap up, there's anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or ask of our listeners?
No, this has been a great opportunity. Thanks for allowing me to share a little bit of my
thank you.
Professional journey. And I would, if we're talking to outdoor people who are looking to enter in the outdoor space, there's still ample room to find new and unique products to sell, products to market, products to design. It's a great space. It's been quite interesting watching the outdoor market coast through, to some degree, recessions and pandemics. Yeah. And when you think about how much some aspects of the outdoor business has grown and how many new participants have come into the sport over the course of the last 20 plus months, because of the fact that people were cooped up. And when you're cooped up and you can't socially interact, you tend to want to get out of your space, your tight space, and get into an open space. So many companies like cycle companies and running shoe companies and trekking and hiking companies have really seen a huge influx of new participants, which is healthy. It's healthy for the sport. So there's definitely opportunity out there. There's still gold in them Nar Hills. You need to just go and mine it.
That's right. And if people would like to follow up with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, website is www.ghsholdings.com, as well as my LinkedIn. Just
Cool.
Type in Gary Schloss and you'll find me.
Awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes. Gary, it's been great talking to you. I appreciate the time.
No problem. Thank you, Rick, for the opportunity.
Right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Saez.